find a lot of interesting things in there about the, about the basic fact of which I learned in Soviet Union. And the only book about it was written by a Soviet professor, but because he was anti-communist, was actually published in the United States in English. And this whole concept is to see that the immune situation in a body of cancer patient is the same as immune situation in the body of pregnant woman, because logically a female body should expel the growing embryo and fetus. Why? Because half of genetic material is from the man, from the father, see? And that is foreign in her body. If immune system would work normally, it would kick it out and the pregnancy would be over. But in reality, for 9 months and 10 days, it does not happen. And when it happens, that the immune system kicks in, delivery takes place. That is a fact. Now this I knew already before, But drinking vodka with his professor, 3 times, and then I reading by his book, then I understood what is the immunology of cancer. That's what it is, you see. In other words, the information is known, but suppressed. In the Soviet Union, he was, he was working, but he was not exactly very popular because Communist Party didn't like him. He was so-called dissident, dissident meaning against, so he was kind of on shaky political grounds, okay. But, at the same time, his book, was made available in the United States, but nobody read it here. I guarantee you that. And it's extremely well written and extremely well translated. That is what we are facing in medicine. The pharma industry is extremely happy to keep on killing cancer patients, because it is the biggest money maker for them. The biggest profit they make is from cancer and AIDS. When in AIDS they don't do any good to the patient, regardless what you hear, it's not true. You want to save the life of AIDS patient? Cell transplantation will do it in 100% of instances. 100% of instances. And we are talking about patients that have 3 months to live. If anybody would just allow me, and this was actually accidentally all discovered by my professor of pediatrics. Because as he was dealing a lot with American patients, one day he had a visitor, doctor and a lawyer, both gay, from state of New York. They asked him if he would not consider treating AIDS patients instead of New York. And the project began. They treated 30 patients instead of New York. And the project stopped because they ran out of money. And the German companies for a while were sending themselves for free, but eventually they quit. So the project died, but the information remained. That's how I learned about it from my dear teacher, you see. And I have all of the data about it from him, He's deceased now, so anyway. So that's why we tried it in Moscow, we tried it in country of Nigeria, And if you will not be convinced, you see in Nigeria, which is a crooked, corrupt country, it was my humanitarian project. When things were not moving, I told, listen, why don't you convince your political professors from your #1 medical school to do an AIDS project? Assemble 12 patients that look like cadaver, and have about 2-3 months to live. Line them up, we will treat them on the same day, and let professors to do the follow-up. Okay. Now, 3 months later, we were having meeting with the chief of FDA. This woman was very brave, and the pharma industry tried to kill her. She had, shaved her hair because she kicked out all Western pharmaceutical companies, from Nigeria. Okay, so they tried to, eliminate her. And and she was very upset with our project because they were kept not informing her about all of that. So as we had this big meeting in her office, and and I noticed that things are bad, I stood up and I said, may I speak? I spoke for 20 minutes, after which she declared me her white brother. And that evening she went on national television, when all of the TV stations have to stop. And she said, I have decided to give a green light to this project because I don't know if I will not need it myself one of these days. That's what I'm saying. The AIDS, I have always said, AIDS is my ultimate weapon. If anybody would allow me to repeat this, performance, just to document it on real patients, but nobody will, And as I said, 30 years ago, the same thing was proven in the state of New York. The project was stopped because of, there was no money and information disappeared. AIDS cannot be cured by cells. But you can keep the immune system, in fighting condition and in balance with the virus, you see. So the patient will live normal lifespan. Wouldn't work for the intravenous drug addicts because there are reinfections. So that this may not be true, but the regular patient that picked up AIDS in some funny way, it will work. I had experience in Nigeria between the cases. I'm sitting in the operating room, inside, because that was the only place which was air conditioned. Outside it was, you would boil down in 15 minutes. And a man in civilian clothes is trying to come in. And I said, please send the man out, this is operating room, sir, etc. He managed to get in. So ultimately I stood up and I went to him. Doctor, don't you remember me? I said, not really. Don't you remember 3 months ago you treated me? And these are a series of cadavers. This was from the group. But in 5 weeks, these people look as healthy as any one of us in this room. They're capable to work and live a normal life. 5 weeks after cell transplantation, every one of them. That is cell and therapy or cell transplantation. And the only time I have a chance to say this, today, right? Now, why the fetal precursor stem cell transplantation is okay as compared with embryonic is, see, because in the fetal stage of development, things were already decided. The embryonic cells are no longer there, and their replacement are no longer pluripotential. Each one of these cells was already given command: you will be the podocyte, the main cell of kidney, you will be the hepatoblast, you will be this, you will be this. So the development of organs, so-called organogenesis, began. That is the barrier between embryonic stage of development and the fetal stage of development. That organogenesis begins. That's the end of it, see. From that point on, a healthy fetus cannot go back into embryonic stage. So the fetal cells in their development cannot become cancerogenic anymore. So from that point on, this is completely safe. So from that point on until basically the birth. Okay. Now, in a human being, the problem, of course, is that you, even in terms of getting the human fetus of second trimester, it happened while I was already in Moscow. The World Health Organization made unfortunate rule because they declared prior to that only fetus over 1,000 grams was legally considered viable. So if you would get a fetus, under 1,000 grams, even though if it was viable, but it was legally non-viable. So you could use it, for preparation of cells. Now, then they decreased that to 500 grams. See? Now that is truly bad, because you see 500 grams, weighing fetus cannot really survive. But in the United States, by law, you must keep such fetus alive. The cost of keeping such a fetus alive in intensive care unit and all of that is about, in those days, I was told that it would be about $500,000 to $1 million per patient. Okay, if you can imagine. And the chance that, that out of this you will get a truly, a human being capable to live outside of an institution was about 2%, according to the information I received, okay? Now, you can imagine, we at the time worked in a country of Yugoslavia, and we worked in a gynecological hospital of the university in medical school, Sarajevo. The chief told me, listen, you know what is our budget for 450-bed hospital per year? With 1 million, we have to survive practically the whole year. So can I spend, that kind of money on one 500-gram, fetus? I mean, it's totally unrealistic, but that was United Nations in Medicine, World Health Organization, and so on and so forth. So that is the unfortunate thing. So as a result of it, you see, in terms of the human material, you truly have a very limited window of opportunity to do something. And that is making the whole thing so impractical that it truly makes no sense to even waste any time and energy on human fetal, cell transplantation, when you can do the same thing with the animal fetal cell transplantation. Absolutely the same thing, with exception of Alzheimer's disease. Okay. With Alzheimer's, we tried, to treat it in the same way like any neurological patients. That was the only diagnosis that it just never worked.